Welcome to the Studio Chatter podcast, everybody. I'm Craig Reeves, and I am back. I know it's been a minute, but I'm really glad to be back, guys, and I appreciate all the well wishes you all have given me. And I'm here with a very special guest, somebody who I've wanted to have on this show for quite some time, somebody who I'm a big fan of, and somebody who has released an amazing album late last year. And I want you guys to be introduced to my good friend, Alvinos. How are you, Alvinos?
Hey, Craig. I'm great. Yeah, it's exciting. You know, I'm a fan of the podcast and I've been waiting. And now that the album is out, is the perfect timing.
Absolutely. So the album, let's talk about it. So it is Crushed Soul and Antisocial Behavior. That is the name of the album. You guys definitely need to check it out. It is 13 tracks. It is an amazing album. Literally all 13 tracks are amazing.
Thank you.
It's one of my favorite albums that came out last year, and that includes major artists or anybody. I mean, it is really fantastic. So you did a really good job. I love the album.
Thanks. That means a lot. Like, I value your opinion. Yeah, thank you. It's been a while, like, since I dropped an album, and I've been working on it for a good year, and it was a heavy year, hence the title. I'm glad you liked it, and I wanted to ask if you have a favorite song or any standouts.
Well, I would probably say that my favorite record would be the single that you released, Out of My Head. I would probably say that was, I would probably say that was my favorite. That beat is really nice. Like, I really like the way it sounds.
Thank you.
I like all the album. I like all the album songs. I think they're all fantastic. But if I had to pick my favorite, I would probably say Out of My Head. What's really interesting about your music, Alvinos, is I think that there are people who probably who are familiar with you, who kind of might have some level of familiarity with your sound, and they might think that your stuff is really out there. But I think when they listen to this album, it all kind of sounds pretty current to me. Like, the stuff that I hear in this album, especially from a production standpoint, do you listen to a lot of the stuff that's currently out, or are you just kind of doing your own thing?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, I used to get a lot of you're too weird, you're too experimental, and all that stuff. And I think it's been a slow progress of me evolving and trying to find my own way of doing current stuff, which I love, but in my own way. And yeah, I listen to anything and everything, like contemporary music, trap music, hip hop. I love hip hop. That's all I listen to in my everyday life. And then I also love sound design, and I love, film scores and experimental music and sound art, and it all just kind of gels nicely, I think, in my music, at least at this point. But yeah, I listen to everything.
Yeah, I definitely hear a lot of modern hip hop influences in your music. So if you could just name off some artists right now who you're really feeling, and you can't mention me, okay?
I was gonna say Save You. Oh my God, man. I love the song.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, who have you really been jamming to lately? Like, who's been in your playlist lately?
You mean producers or in general?
Just anybody. Just any artist or anybody.
Well, I have the poster right in my wall. You can't see it, but Mac Miller is he's my favorite.
Oh, nice.
Mac Miller is, in the last two albums, Swimming and Circles, are
oh yeah,
I still play them almost every week, like at least a tune or two from each.
Mm-hmm.
I like Burial, the producer.
Mm-hmm.
I love his stuff. A London artist called Shy Girl. She's a rapper, also produces as well. I don't know if you know her. She's very good. I'm gonna see her live actually in 2 months. I'm very excited for that.
Oh wow!
And I also, what else have I been listening to lately? Kilimanjaro, obviously.
Yeah.
Chuck Sutton.
Oh yeah. I hear those people
stuff.
in your music.
Yeah.
I hear all those influences in your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to shy away from them. I really do study them. I study them a lot. Yeah. And obviously, like, I always listen to Jay Dilla and The Roots and,
Mm-hmm.
90s, 2000s kind of stuff.
One thing that you brought up, and I do want to ask you about it, and it's something I've always been curious about. Do you sometimes feel like people don't get your sound? Because like when I listen to your music, it like I said, I mean, it doesn't sound all that out there to me. And when you listen to a lot of the stuff that's currently out, it doesn't sound much different from the stuff that you're putting out. Like especially like a lot of the rap music today. Because a lot of the rap music uses a lot of auto tune and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But do you sometimes feel like folks in the, I guess, more producer community don't get your sound? Because I often hear terms like, oh, Alvinos is kind of like the weird artsy trap guy, and
Yeah.
I don't think that mainstream audiences would get that from listening to your music.
I think it's interesting because there are songs, like you said, out of my head, that's not really that crazy, like it's fairly, I don't want to say simple, but it's fairly straightforward. But then I do have songs that are like, Darkness or Fly Away, that really do some different stuff, like harmonically mostly, but also some sound design choices that are not something you will hear on a top 10, top 20, top 40 single. And I think if you look at the whole picture, it's a weird blend. That's why people might be confused. And that's why I also have, how it is with pitching your music. Like you want to pitch to radios and playlists and promoters, and they say it's too weird or it's not weird enough, or it doesn't sound like something I could attach. Like I can't attach a famous name on it, so I can't market it. Like it doesn't sound like Kanye or whatever. But yeah, I think that's the issue. It's still a weird blend. Like the album I love the album, but it's not one sound. There's so many different sounds within each song, but it's mostly dark stuff. That's how I market it. It's dark.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the current hip hop is really dark.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you hear some of Ghana and, some of that kind of stuff, like, a Boogie with the Hoodie, some of that stuff that's out, it sounds pretty dark.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the productions sound pretty dark. I'm not saying that there aren't differences between what they're doing and what you're doing, but a lot of the reputation that you have as being kind of the weird music person, I don't really, I mean, when people actually listen to your music, I don't think that would be the reaction that they would come away with. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Curious. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very curious. Like, have you made efforts in getting industry people to listen to your music and work with artists? Because I think that you could offer something unique to even mainstream artists.
I haven't reached out to industry people, at least not with I haven't tried to like reach out to any major artists or mainstream artists yet. I do though work with a lot of indie artists that either have still not dropped a single, like I'm developing a couple singers right now that I want to produce for them. And I agree with what you said. I do think I have to offer something unique, at least production wise, because that's my main thing. I know I use vocals lately, but I'm a producer first and foremost. No, I haven't reached out to anybody in the industry yet. I don't think I would know how to navigate through that space yet. But I'm really interested in, I don't know, finding my own crew and developing my own team and, have a team of artists that I work with and that I like always work with.
Yeah. I mean, you could start with having people feature
Yeah.
on some of your music, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you can build relationships with people. Have you thought about that? Because one thing that a lot of people are doing today is artists are really finding a limelight from featuring on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's how relationships, because, you know, this business is really all about relationships at the end of the day. And if you have somebody feature on something and, you know, it becomes a hit record, then that's kind of like, now we know each other. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, oh, now we can work together.
Yeah.
You know?
That makes perfect sense. And I don't know, I guess I have been studying for the past year, and then that was my master's degree, so I did 3 years before that as well. So it was kind of like me doing production and like doing my own thing and trying to find my sound, and anything else that happened collaboratively was just on the side. But this year I'm like 100% fully into doing music. So I do have a couple. Can I shout out a project that's coming out next month?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I have a friend, he's a rapper singer from Kenya. His name is Young Smart, and we put out a few records already, but we are putting out his EP on February 1st. I produced, mixed, mastered the whole thing. So that's the first thing that we're dropping in 2022. And I have a couple other artists that I am working with. Now about features, I wanted to do like a remix album, you know, like remix every song from this album. But that would be like more of a producer's feature, you know, like I have so many producer friends, so it would be good to have them on the album. You included if you wanted to.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Oh, yeah.
Be honored.
Oh, yeah.
Young Smart, so that's his name.
That's his artist name.
Wow.
Yeah. He's from Kenya. We dropped a song in, like, we met during the first pandemic lockdown situation, you know, 2020. And we dropped a song called Wampakacha, which was #1 in Kenya, weirdly enough.
Oh, wow.
That was a cool tune. Yeah, it's like a Latin R&B vibe. I guess that's also why people have trouble focusing on my sound. There's so many things going on. So the stuff we're dropping together is like Latin fused with hip hop, fused with trap, if that makes sense.
Cool. So what's the name of the song that you produced for Young Smart?
So it's called Wampakacha, and that's spelled W-A...
I see it here. Yeah, I'm looking on Spotify.
It's right there.
I'll definitely put a link to it in the description on YouTube for people to check it out.
He's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
It's always cool to see people, because I get a lot of people on this show who are kind of artist first and then producer second, right? They are artists who produce, but it's always nice to have people who produce other artists.
Yeah.
There's kind of a kinship that I have, because that's primarily what I do. I don't really consider myself like an artist. I kind of consider myself as a producer who works with other artists.
You're both. Come on.
I can do both, but I mean, I consider myself as more of somebody who wants to make hit records for other people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with being an artist who produces your own stuff. I think there's quite a bit of
strength to both. Yeah.
You know, yeah, absolutely. But you know, I think there's also room for people who want to make hits for other people who need production.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I love that. I love. You know how it is, like the vibe of meeting someone new and it just aligns, you know, like your visions align and what they want is what you want and it comes together perfectly. And a lot of times that doesn't happen, but when it happens, it's magic. And that's what it usually is with me and Young Smart.
Nice. Now you also offer mixing services too.
Yeah.
And I think, so you mixed and mastered the album that you came out with. You mix and master your own stuff. There's not like
mix and master. They did the music videos, did the artwork. Yeah.
Wow. So you do it all.
Yep.
So anybody who listens to your album, I mean, any of them, whether it be Crush Soul and Antisocial Behavior, or the Alvinos versus Lo-Fi, which I believe was your last EP, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was New Year. Yeah, January 1st of 2021. That was.
Yeah, I believe. I think. Yeah, I think that was your last EP.
Yeah.
Whether it be that one or this one, I mean, the mixers are really good. I mean, it's definitely obvious that you know what you're doing. So anybody who wants to get mixing services from you, how would they be able to reach out to you?
Well, at first, just reach out on my socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm out there. And I have it on my bios now. So I try to do it full time now. So yeah, reach out, honestly. And I wouldn't give my email right now. No. So yeah, socials.
Awesome.
We can
talk. Well,
yeah. I do most.
Yeah. So everybody, if you are listening to this on YouTube, the link to Alvinos' Instagram is going to be in the description below. So if you like what you hear and you think that Alvinos is really good, and well, I know that Alvinos is good when it comes to mixing, you really are going to be in good hands with him. So he is offering that service as well. Now, we ask this every episode, and I'm going to ask you the same question. I want to know your origin story. I want to know how you got started. How did you go from a little kid climbing trees to the great producer that we see today?
I didn't climb trees, but yeah. Yeah, I was a lame kid. I didn't do much interesting stuff. Yeah, so my origin story. So I'm from Cyprus, which is an island in the Middle East. Born and raised there.
What's the language over there? Is it Arabic?
So there's two major communities, and we speak either Greek or Turkish.
Okay, Greek or Turkish. Boy, I was way off.
I mean, no, everybody else around us speak Arabic. And when I say we speak Greek, but in the Cypriot dialect, which is influenced by Arabic, influenced by Arabic and Turkish and ancient Greek. There's a lot of, it's a weird language. To make the long story short. So yeah, I'm born and raised there, and I mostly listened to Greek music, growing up. Like, I didn't really listen to any electronic or hip hop or any of this stuff until my late teens. Like, the first time I went to a club, I remember I was 17, and that's the first time I listened to electronic music, and it made a huge impression on me, because it's like, what the hell is this? Like, it sounds like nothing, like. And I remember we went to a club. We were underage, but we're still winning. And the DJ was like, okay, so there was this girl I had a crush on, right?
It always starts with that. It
starts with that, right? Yeah, always. Her sister was working at the club as a PR, so she got us in. And her sister's boyfriend was a DJ. So in my head was like, that's how you get the girl, like, the DJ is cool. And the DJ was playing house music, and I had no idea what that was. Like, I asked the bouncer, like, what is this? And he said, he gave me a couple of song titles. And then the next day I'm Googling song titles that I got from the club, and I'm listening to like Frankie Knuckles and David Morales and David Guetta. And I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. So, a few months of listening, I got a DJ controller, and I started practicing that. And then that wasn't enough, and I started, looking into DAWs, and I got the free version of FL Studio, and I started making, my first basic mixes. I mean, I had no music education. I didn't know anything about keys or chords or scales or whatever. So it was a very, very slow process. And yeah, 2 years of high school, I was trying to learn FL Studio, and that's how I started.
Wow, that's amazing. So you started with FL Studio, and you use Ableton Live now, right?
Yeah, I switched in 2017. Yeah.
What made you switch?
The workflow, like, I mean, I love FL Studio, and at that point I was feeling guilty for switching because it's like it's what made me start music, you know. But
Uh-huh.
I don't know. The first time I used Ableton, it was like you know that meme of the guy's head exploding, like it's like that. It's like, oh my god, I can do this. Like I can just drag a sample and like consolidate it and reverse it and chop it up like, that easily. It's so easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, for a while I kept both on my laptop, but then I had no space, so I decided to delete FL Studio and just stick with Ableton. And yeah, I've been using that since 2017 now.
That's amazing. You know, the first time that I used Ableton, I didn't care for it. I didn't like it when I first started using it.
I remember I was watching.
Yeah, and I had to ask for a lot of help. But then again, I mean, I still use Cakewalk. I use Cakewalk all the time.
I've tried that.
So I use both.
I've tried that too.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. How do you call that thing when somebody sends you a project file, but it's like just the stems? You know?
I just call it stems.
There's a file format that is like, instead of sending you the stems, they send you the... Is it called...
Oh, God. Yeah, I know. I can't remember.
That's why I started using it, because, you know, Young Smart, the artist I mentioned before, he was sending me those files from Cakewalk, because that's what he records in, and I would have to install Cakewalk and export into the stems. And yeah, I like how it looks, but I've never really dived into it.
Yeah, so typically I'll make the track in Ableton because I do find, as far as beat making, the workflow to be a little bit easier in Ableton, but then everything else I do in Cakewalk. Yeah. So as far as like recording and mixing and editing and all that kind of stuff, I still do in Cakewalk just because I find it a lot easier. As far as like, I know I know that Ableton now has comping and all that kind of stuff, but it's still not as advanced as Cakewalk or Logic or Pro Tools when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, and I don't really care for Pro Tools. The only time that I have Pro Tools on my computer, it's just that the only time that I ever use Pro Tools is if I get a file that is a Pro Tools project and I have to work on Pro Tools. Like if we record at the studio and then I get the stems back and they're in a Pro Tools project, because a lot of times I get a Pro Tools project when I do commissioned work, I'll get a Pro Tools file. They'll just send me a Pro Tools project and I have to work in Pro Tools, but I only work in Pro Tools when I have to. Nothing against Pro Tools for those of you out there. It's just not my cup of tea.
I'm gonna cancel you, Craig. Don't you ask them for stems when you work for commissions? I always ask them for stems.
Well, the thing is, I try to be as flexible as I can. So I don't want to make people, I'm comfortable in Pro Tools. I just don't like working in it as much. You know what I mean?
That,
So
that's me.
That's
me and Logic. I can't stand Logic. Like,
you don't like Logic? You know, what's funny is I used to hate Logic, but I hated Logic up until last year.
What happened?
But well, the thing is, I was forced to work in Logic because there was a commission project that I was doing. It was a collab that I was doing with somebody, and they knew Logic. And so I thought, maybe this will be an opportunity for me to give Logic another chance. Because before that, I had used Logic, but it was way back in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
And that was back when Logic was a lot buggier than it is now. Now it is still buggy, but all DAWs are buggy. I mean, every DAW on the planet is buggy, except Ableton. Ableton's the only one that's not really that buggy.
I have not many issues.
Yeah, Ableton's not buggy, but every other DAW out there is buggy as hell, including Logic, including Cakewalk, including Pro Tools,
including FL Studio,
and including FL Studio and including Cubase as well. But I really like Logic now. I do. I think that Logic is a good DAW. It really is. Although a lot of my friends are leaving Logic to Ableton or Bitwig or whatever.
They're growing up.
But
they're maturing. That's what it is.
Well, now Apple will never sponsor this podcast, but
oh my god, blip me out, Craig.
No, it's all good. We are not politically correct on the Studio Chatter podcast,
Thank
as
God.
you can tell.
Oh, wow.
But I'm very curious. What instruments do you play? Because
nothing.
you didn't ever mention the instruments that you played in your origin story.
Yeah, so I have zero training, classical training or whatever you want to call it. I can play the keys, like I bought a MIDI keyboard early on, and I wanted to learn theory because I know, you know how you get all these ads on YouTube. You don't need to know music theory, just get this MIDI pack or whatever. And I'm like, no, I want to know how it works because I think it helps, and it does help. So I've been watching YouTube videos since I was 17, trying to figure out, you know, all this stuff. And then I bought jazz books and harmony books and read through that. So I can find my way around the keyboard. Like I can play my own songs easily. And I do make covers as of late. So that helps. And I recently bought a guitar, so I'm trying to learn that as well by myself. And that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know, do you consider finger drumming an instrument?
Dude, there is a lot of skill in that.
Right? I think it's an instrument.
Cannot finger drum. I can't. Like I'll watch Neon Vines do that stuff, and it blows my mind. It is crazy how they do that.
Like I'm not as good as them, but yeah, it's crazy. Like I think it's like sign language is a language. I think finger drumming is an instrument.
Yeah, and what I don't get also is the way that people, you know, the Ableton push, right? Yeah. Like there are people who can play it like a piano. It just blows my mind when people do that. I'll watch people on videos and they'll be playing the Ableton push like a piano, like they're playing it like keys, and it sounds like a piano when they play it. It's like, how do they do that?
It's training. It's the same as you train for your actual instrument. It's hours and hours and hours of training. I think producing is an instrument, like it's all the instruments. It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So what is your creative approach? Like, take me from how you create a record. Like this, I know it's going to be different for every song, but I'm really curious, just generally speaking, what is your typical creative process? Do you usually start with the track, or do you write the song first, or do you come up with an idea, or like, what is the process for you? I'm very curious.
So yeah, as you said, it differs. It depends on the song, but for the ones on the album that I'm using my vocals and I had to write lyrics and record vocals and all that stuff, I've almost 95% of the times I found it easier to have some sort of instrumental down and then freestyle a melody over it and then write the words. Yeah, I mean the instrumental would change eventually, but I find like for example, the song you said is your favorite, Out of My Head. I remember that one because when I turned on the laptop and I opened Ableton, I knew I wanted to have that auto-tuning kind of vibe. So I had that in my head, and I knew I wanted to use some sort of piano chords that are like modulated and affected in a weird way to sound different than a regular piano. So I came up with the chords, and then I freestyled the melody on top, and then recorded that, did the auto-tune. And then I just built a 16-bar loop. And then eventually I stretch it into a song. And the last thing I will do is the 808 bass slides, because I love doing those. And that's sort of it became a signature, almost. You know, the little details like that, I leave at the end. But I always start at least with a chord progression, then some sort of a melody, and then build a rhythmic track around that. Yeah.
What are some of the sounds you use? Like, what are some of the? Do you use hardware synths or?
I see. I did do the Splice Rent to Own for the Arturia V collection, which I highly recommend. Like, I remember I watched Pat Snacks doing a video of that last year, and I'm like, yeah, I want to have that. And that's actually where I use the piano sounds for Out of My Head, I think. So I use that a lot. Serum is like an extension of my brain at this point. Like I think in Serum when I think of sounds. I do have a couple synthesizers. I have the Yamaha Reeves CS, which is like a small remodeling of the CS80. You know, the Blade Runner synth.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I also have a Micro Freak, which I'm sad I don't use as much now.
Micro freaking out.
Yeah,
I always think of that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like I had
hopefully Rachel K. Collier will come on the show one day.
You have to have her. She's amazing. And I wanted to talk.
I've reached out to her.
I wanted to talk about her live.
Out to her.
I want her to talk more about her live performance, process. It's crazy. Yeah. And I guess I've been kind of hiding the guitar, my electric guitar, in the back of some songs. So, you know, like we're sampling stuff and then stretching them and distorting them and doing weird stuff to them. But yeah, when it comes to synths, it's mostly the Arturia stuff, Serum. Weirdly enough, the sampler in Ableton is really good. So I use that a lot. Especially all my 808s are through the sampler of Ableton. All of them. What else? I think that's the Majuro piano. I have to say Majuro piano. Easily.
I found out it was Imagiro, not Imagiro, because I keep calling him Imagiro because I had him on this show and he calls himself Imagiro. I was like,
is it Imagiro's piano? That's weird. I can't say that.
Imagiro.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I'll try.
I'm going to keep calling him Imagiro because I think Imagiro sounds cooler.
I blame Bad Snacks. I blame Bad Snacks. That's how she always called him and then it's stuck in my head. Okay, Majiro's piano. I use that a lot. It's amazing.
Yeah, Majiro's piano is phenomenal.
You have it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm using it every day.
And also Synplant. I don't know if you...
Synplant?
Yeah. So it's a weird little synth that looks like a plant. And it's
I know what it is. You know what it is.
I love it. Like
absolutely,
it's gorgeous.
Dear Evergreen got me onto that. I haven't used it myself, but I've seen her using it. Yeah,
I've been using it since 2017, I think. I love that.
What do you use for the 808s?
So it's usually samples that I'm gonna distort or layer with other samples. There's so many 808 samples out there. And I did go through a phase where I wanted to, you know, design my own 808s from scratch. And I would do them in...
That's hard.
Yeah, I would do them in Serum. I mean, it is hard, but once you get the idea of it, it's simple. And actually now, I should mention, I'm also writing music articles for a blog. And right now I'm writing an article on how to design 808s and other stuff. So let me give you a plugin that you can check out. So there's this one plugin that's made it's called Sublab.
Oh, Sublab, yeah.
You know it,
right?
Yeah,
Sublab is great.
So Sublab and also the Swede Trap Bass.
Yeah.
So those are like
nice,
made to design 808s on. And I'm past designing my 808s mostly because, well, by the time I do it, the inspiration is gone. But now I have a lot of, you know, sounds I already designed or bounced into audio, or a lot of the ones I buy from other producers or collect. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I also like to layer 808s with actual synthesized bass, like a Reeves bass or a weird organ bass. It's just different colors and textures.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that you mentioned before is when you are writing music, you freestyle. Now, does that include the lyrics too, or is that just the melody? Because are you like a lot of people, they will freestyle the lyrics and the melody. Is that what you do, or do you kind of write the lyrics out and ponder over them?
I do both. Mostly melodies. Lyrics as well sometimes, but I find it easy to like it doesn't come as naturally to me yet. I have to really think about them and write them and practice them in my head.
Yeah, lyrics are tough.
Yeah, and I'm not a lyricist. I can't even call myself a vocalist yet. But yeah, mostly the melodies are freestyle. because I've always been doing it anyway. Like even before, when I made instrumental music, I would hum a melody and then trying to figure out how to get it right in the piano roll.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mostly freestyle the melodies.
Nice. So I'm really curious about your take on something.
Oh, yeah.
And we're gonna kind of switch topics a little
Let's
bit,
go.
okay? You are on Spotify just like pretty much everybody else.
Yep. Let's have the talk.
What do you think? Yeah. So I'm just very curious. Like, what do you think about the way Spotify has basically taken over the entire industry? That pretty much every metric of success seems to be centered around Spotify plays, Spotify playlist placement. What are your thoughts on all of that? Like, what are your general thoughts when I say the word Spotify?
Well, it's a mixed bag, and it will always be a mixed bag because they do control everything, like you said, and you can't not be on Spotify. You have to be on Spotify, I think. And whether you support it or not, like it's what people mostly use to find music. And I do have people that actually found me on Spotify for one reason or another. Like a friend of mine is gonna send a Spotify link to someone and they'll find me, or a playlist or whatever. But yeah, it's like I don't get much from it. Other than that, like no money, obviously, and the exposure is minimal. And you can't get on any. I know I've heard you talk about the editorial playlists and all that stuff, how they work.
Yeah, the editorial playlist,
or how they're supposed to work, but we don't know if they actually work. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. I feel divided. I don't want to talk shit about it because I do use it, and I listen to music on Spotify every day. Like I can't talk shit about it because I use it. I have a subscription. I have a family package. Like I pay for my whole family, and we all use it to listen to music. And I do put my music there, and that's what I mostly promote. But at the same time, I wish, I don't know, it paid a little bit better. Or I've heard a story. I mean, I don't know if you heard any stories like this, but the other day on Reddit, an independent artist, this guy literally has less than 100 monthly listeners, right? And he uses DistroKid, and he said that DistroKid was showing him less funds from Spotify than usually. And when he actually reached out, he said Spotify has withheld some of the funds for suspicious streaming activity. Like apparently his streams are suspicious, that he's been buying them, and he doesn't even have 1,000 streams. Like who would buy 10 streams? You know what I mean? Like it's weird. So not only
there's
they don't,
a lot to that.
Not only they don't pay.
Yeah, there's a lot to that.
Not only they don't pay, their tracking system for tracking illegal activities is obviously not working either. Because I know of other people that actually pay to be on playlists with hundreds of thousands of streams, and I doubt they don't get money. So
you see that opens the door up for a lot of people to take advantage of that. Easily, because there are a lot of fake curators out there who sell fake streams. I mean, you know, people get on playlists and they end up getting a lot of fake streams and people like that. And then, you know, they'll find that the fans, because getting a bunch of fake plays doesn't really get you anything. I mean, it just kind of, in fact, it can make you look bad, because in a lot of cases, if you put out a record and it gets a whole bunch of fake streams, if you have like 1 million streams from a fake record, like from a fake playlist, and then people look on your Spotify and then no other record has that many streams, people might think, oh, you're just kind of like a one-hit wonder, or that was clearly bots. You know, it kind of exposes you.
Also, you can't play
and
any
there's
shows.
Nothing you can do about it.
And you can't go and play any shows. Like, you know how it shows you the most streamed cities? If you go to the city, nobody's going to know who you are. because it's all fake.
Buffalo, New York. Yeah, it's always Buffalo. I don't know what it is. Like, it seems like bots favor Buffalo. So if you are, if you have a record or if you're an artist and like a bunch of streams are based in Buffalo, it's kind of like, look, it's funny because I was in Buffalo not long ago and it's a beautiful city, but I don't think people are playing indie artists crazy like that in Buffalo. It's bots, clearly.
Cool.
So,
I just looked at mine and Buffalo is not on the top 5, so I'm safe. Nice. It's New York, London, Moscow for some reason, Prague, I got friends there, and Nicosia, my hometown, I got friends there. So yeah, we're safe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of artists who just want to promote their stuff, they will go to, various people who can promise them promotion.
Yeah.
And if, Spotify has become the king as far as getting heard, then there's going to be a lot of scammers who can, sell you exposure that's not real. And then people can, and with the editorial playlists, it's like the majority of the music that ends up on the editorial playlists are music from major labels or really big independent labels.
Or even,
I know that,
or even artists that are independent that actually do have a team. Like they have a manager, they have a publisher, they have a whole system pushing. You know what I mean? We don't have that.
Yeah, it's not a meritocracy. It's really not. And I think for a lot of artists who find that their friends are getting put on editorial playlists and it's like, well, wow, what do they have that I don't? But the truth is that there are people who were signed to like a label or had management and they put one record out and it got on a bunch of playlists. And then when they leave that label, yet they still have the same creative force behind what they're doing and they don't end up on any label.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what happened to Kara. You know the artist Kara who put out the record Underwater and Tempo and all that. Yeah. She worked with Kashmir.
Yeah.
And Kashmir put out a record with Kara and that record ended up on quite a few playlists, but then Kara puts out on quite a few editorial playlists, and then Kara puts out a record, same creative team, same people behind the record. It ends up on no playlists. It's the same quality, it's the same team, it's the same writers, same producers, same everything, but it's under her name and not Kashmir's name, and it didn't end up on any editorial playlist.
Was she featured on the Kashmir record?
Yeah, she was featured.
So her name was on the actual song?
Her name was on the song, but she was not the primary artist.
Because sometimes...
And so when Kashmir was the primary artist, it ended up on quite a few editorial playlists, but then when she's the primary artist, it doesn't end up on any.
I can see how Kashmir's name is big, especially in our world. Like everybody I know who produces EDM knows who Kashmir is. So I can see how they're also trying to sell off his name. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, nobody's saying that the music doesn't deserve to be on the playlist.
Easily,
the point is that it really is, I would say, more about the name.
That's what it is,
because there is decidedly bad music coming out of major labels, but it's always going to end up on an editorial playlist. You know what I mean? Like that freaking Addison Rae song, Obsessed. The song's terrible. It was panned by critics, and the record ended up on like 19 different editorial playlists because she's a TikTok star. And the record was released through Sandlot, which is a big label, and it ended up on 19 different editorial playlists despite being a terrible record.
I see what you mean.
So it's not really a meritocracy as much as people want to claim it is. I'm curious what your idea is to be able to counteract that. Do you think that there should be a collective because I brought this up to Bad Snacks, all right? I brought up the idea of kind of
The label idea.
Kind of a label where we could like kind of pull our resources together and then release music through this label, and we can just like, because I think that would be the only way that we could kind of fight the power. Because right now, everybody's kind of hoping that the big label chooses them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly.
It's kind of like, oh, let's hope that Bitbird chooses me, or let's hope that Sandlot Records chooses me, or something like that. When the reality is that there is enough of us,
I think,
where and we have enough music that we're all putting out. It's like, why not? Okay, so Alvinos just put out this record, and we could all crowd fund promoting that record, and then when that record does well, then we can, then crowd fund another record. You know what I mean? Kind of like,
when you say does well, do you mean in streams, or what's the metric of doing well?
Well, I hate to say this, but I probably would
Spotify
have to say streams.
Right? Yeah. So my point is that that power is already in our hands. Like, nothing's stopping us from making a collective, and that's what I want to do eventually. Like, that's what I'm trying to do with my artists, build them up, and all of us support each other. And we're also kind of doing it. Like, we have a community in Discord, and we all kind of share each other's stuff when it's out. Maybe not as actively as actually crowdfunding, but on a degree we're doing it. And yeah, when I was listening to that episode with Bad Snacks, the idea of a label, that sounds amazing. Like, sign me up.
Yeah.
But I think this model was always here. Like, what's the artist you named? Her song was panned by critics, and Addison Rae.
Oh, Addison Rae.
What's the term? Industry plant? Is that the term? Am I making that up? Or does that not apply here?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, golly, it's kind of hard to say that somebody like Addison Rae wouldn't be an industry plant.
So is the term meaning somebody who was placed in a high...
Well, Addison Rae is a very beautiful woman, and she's on TikTok, and she does dances.
Okay, that's different.
And that's how she... Okay. And here's the deal, right? Addison Rae was kind of a plant on TikTok because she was discovered by people who are already really big on TikTok, and they helped her to blow up on TikTok. I think she was associated with the Hype House. Have you heard about them?
Dude, you're speaking a foreign language right now. Like,
okay, so trust me, it's foreign to me too. I just heard about this. So the Hype House is this house, I think in LA. It's this big mansion where a bunch of big name TikTok influencers live. They have this reality series on Netflix.
This is crazy.
I'm not even kidding. And they all live in this mansion, and they all just promote each other.
That's cool.
And I think that one of them discovered Addison Rae and helped Addison Rae to blow up and become a big name on TikTok.
Well, you know what this sounds to me? I mean, it's what I said. This model has always been here. It's like you're describing Usher and Justin Bieber, or you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, but Justin Bieber has
of course he does,
though.
but
I mean,
like,
you can't
of
really
course,
say
I
that.
mean, I'm sorry, I haven't heard of her, so I don't know exactly what her sound is like.
Oh, Addison Rae. I mean, Addison Rae couldn't compare to Justin Bieber.
I love Bieber,
by
the way. Like,
yeah, Bieber's great, but like Addison Rae is not a very good singer.
Okay, cool.
She is a hot girl who dances. Okay. And as a result, and here's the thing, she didn't even find fame on her own. I think it was other people that kind of handed her fame. You know what I mean?
The way I see it is,
and then she was,
the way I see it is that I don't want to be compared to these types of artists. I'm quoting right now, like
I don't think you have to worry.
That's my point.
About
so
that.
like, I don't have to think about them, so I don't really care what they do. I think what we have to realize is that that's the same with radio in the 50s or 60s or 70s. It's like, it's about big labels like putting their artists on radios and buying spots for them. Like, oh, my big artist is dropping their debut single, like you've never heard of them, but I already bought them to be playing like 10 times every day for the first week on this radio station. You know what I mean? Like without even having any previous proof to back up how good of an artist they are. And that's always been happening.
Yeah, but it's fun though.
Well,
you gotta admit, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. But in my head is
doing research on industry plans. It's pretty fun.
But in my head is the same with Spotify. I don't think anything's changed. I think it's becoming more publicized because music is more accessible to all of us. You know what I mean? Like, I think more people are making music now because it's so much more accessible. So more of us are getting to see this other side of it. That's why it seems like such a big of a deal, although it's always been there. Like I studied music for my bachelor's, and there was a business module of it, like a music business module that I actually hated because it was so depressing. But this always been happening. I guess the question is, what can we do to use it to our advantage and eventually change it?
I don't think we can use it to our advantage. So? I think we have to fight it.
Okay.
I think we do. Like the only, because here's one thing that Imagiro brought. Why do I keep saying Imagiro like that?
Craig, Imagiro.
Imagiro. Yeah. One thing that Imagiro brought up, the major labels always have to have some kind of corner on the market in order for people to want to join their label. Okay. So back, I guess in the 70s and the 80s, and I would even say the early 90s, it was the ability to be able to put out music of a certain quality that you were not going to get outside of a major studio.
I see, yeah.
Okay. So, back in the day, the only way that you were going to be able to put out music that was anywhere near the production quality of Thriller or a Luther Vandross album or something like that was if you went to a big budget studio, you had top level musicians, top level engineers, you had the works, and it was way outside the budget of most people. Okay. And so the only way that you could make music of that quality was if you were signed to a major label. So the advantage, I guess, incentive for people to join a major label was not only to make that quality of music, but also to be able to distribute it. Because, back then you couldn't distribute your music nationwide unless you had a major distribution deal or you were signed to a major label or a really, really big independent. Okay. But now you can release your music worldwide without the need for a major label. So there's no need to go through a major label to distribute your music. And as far as the quality goes, not only is it the case that you can get much closer to that quality recording at home. In fact, a lot of majors record their music in home studios now. All right. So you can get that quality without the need of a major. You can get the distribution without the need of a major. So what incentive would somebody have on signing with a major label? There is none other than what?
Exposure. Yeah.
Exposure. That's the only thing the major labels have left. It is the only corner on the market they have. It is the only incentive that anybody would have to give up the ownership of their music, Alvinos, to join a major label. It is the reason why people are willing to put themselves on The Voice or any of these other reality television shows that if they win or even if they get second or third, they could join a major label. It is the only thing they have left. That's it. And so, of course, these major labels are going to want to politic with Spotify. Of course, Sony is going to want to be able to have an equity stake in Spotify. Of course, that's going to be what these major labels are going to do, because if you could get exposure outside of a major label, if you could get Sony or Warner level exposure outside of Sony or Warner, there's no need to join Sony or Warner.
I see.
So that's really what it is. So I don't think there's any way that, we're going to be able to cooperate with the system. No, I mean, because it literally goes against the business model of the major labels for us not to need them for something.
And do you think...
And it's literally the only power they have left.
Do you think that's exclusively tied to Spotify or every streaming platform?
Well, it doesn't have to. Well, here's the thing. Spotify runs everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it doesn't have to not be. You know what I'm saying? Like it literally, Spotify is the only thing the major labels have to control.
Yeah. So my question
right
is
now,
if we all, because I had this thought and I've talked about this with my dad, of all people, who is really getting into this whole streaming kind of discussions with me. He's trying to understand everything. How cute. He's like, then why don't you just join Tidal? And I'm like, that's a good question, because Tidal pays so much more.
I use Tidal.
I was going to say.
Tidal's my primary streaming
I was going to say, you use
app,
Tidal. Yeah. I know 2 other people that use Tidal. That's it. I know 3 people now that use Tidal. So how do you even do that? Like,
well, here's the reality. All right, like here's the truth, and I know that this is not going to be easy for artists to hear. Okay, but people don't want to pay for music. Yeah. Okay, they don't, and Tidal does not have free. They don't have a free tier. All right, there are no free users on Tidal.
That's why I pay more.
And that's the reason why they pay so much. Tidal can pay so much because there are no free users on Tidal. Okay, Spotify can pay so little because there are a bunch of free users on Spotify.
Like, let's be honest, like they make money from ads. Like the free users have ads, so they could have easily used that money to pay us. And they could also make this model that I've been seeing around of like tracking how many listeners of your listeners are actually paying subscription packages, and then get higher percentages because your listeners are paying, not just dump down one single percentage for all of us. You know what I mean? It's just...
Okay, they can make... Okay, yeah, Spotify makes money off of free users from ads. That is true. However, in my opinion, Spotify can always use the excuse, oh, well, we've got all these free users, and they could always blame the people who don't want to pay for music
they're evil.
as to why artists are not getting paid, right? So as long as they have free users, Spotify can always say, oh no, if artists want to get paid more, then all these people have to start being willing to pay for Spotify. Now, of course, all Spotify would have to do is just end the free service, right? All Spotify would have to do is just say, all right, no more free tier, right? No more freebies, or at the very least, you can only stream this amount of hours of music per month before you have to pay, or just something. Or, you know, after this amount of time, we're going to substantially lower the quality of the music each month. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you get a certain amount of streaming minutes that are free every month before they will throttle the quality. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that they could do to incentivize people to pay for the service.
So how do we fight the system, Craig? How do we change it? Do we just wait?
Well,
because it's going to collapse eventually. Like, it always changes. I think it's a cycle. Like, in 20 years, we're going to have other issues, whether we like it or not.
Well, I think that the way people are going about it is, let's just get people to stop using Spotify.
Yeah, that's not happening.
It's not going to happen. Not happening. All right. You're not going to be able to get people to stop using something that's free. All right. There's no way that you are going to get people to stop using a service where they get to stream music for free. That's not going to happen. Okay. It's not about fighting the people or trying to get people to get off Spotify. In my opinion, I think the only way would be to offer the same thing that the major labels are offering, but without having to go through the major labels. I really think that is what it is. I think that there needs to be more avenues for people to be able to promote their music without scams. All right. Because right now there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of promotion companies out there that are scams. Okay. Well, there needs to be something, and I'm not even sure what it is.
Streaming police.
But there needs to, well, I mean, I'm not really sure, but there needs to be something that gives people an avenue to promote their music without having to go through major labels. I think that is going to be the key.
I think we can,
in my opinion.
I'm always been. My friends always say I'm too optimistic, but like, I still think that if you just be patient and just keep working on your shit and just post it, promote it, share it, talk to people, network, doors open. Like, I'm not from America. I'm not from, I don't know, LA or an industry city or anything. I'm from the Middle East, like Jesus Christ. Like, I served 2 years in the army. Like, and I'm here. I know I'm not famous or anything, but I'm better than I was 2 years ago. And I'm better than I was 5 years ago. And I think if I keep going at it, I'm going to be better in 5 years. So, I don't know. I think if you just sit down and keep working, doors will open. Doors will open.
Yeah, doors will open. I don't doubt that. What I'm saying, though, is I'm speaking from a systemic point of view, not necessarily for, I think I've
given up on the system. Like, I can't change the system, man. At least not now. Maybe talk to me in 10 years. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I'm not. Okay, you, like, one individual ain't going to be able to change it. Like, I agree. Okay, like, one person's not going to be able to change the system. I'm just talking about ways in which the system would change if it did. All right. Yes, it is not going to take just one person. All right. And I'm not saying that any individual artist who's listening to this right now shouldn't go through Spotify, that you shouldn't try to get on an editorial playlist. I mean, you got to play within the system right now because the system is here. But what I am saying is, if the system is going to change, it is not going to change by getting Spotify to stop giving free giving free service to people. I mean, that's not going to happen.
Would you be happy if they paid more?
Well, the only way that Spotify is going to pay more is if they get rid of the free service. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, the reason why Spotify
don't have the money.
I'm telling you right now that, like, again, Spotify has no incentive to pay artists more. Okay. Like, when people say, oh, Spotify should pay artists more, Spotify is not, there's only two ways in which Spotify is going to pay artists more. Number one is if artists get off of Spotify until they pay more. Not going to happen. Why? Because Spotify is the only game in town. Everybody's on Spotify. Okay. Number two is if they get rid of their free service. Spotify has no incentive to pay their artists more. Okay. The reason why Tidal pays their artists so much, it's not because they're just moral and Spotify's not. No, Tidal can afford to pay their artists more. Okay. Because Tidal doesn't have a free tier. You have to pay to get on Tidal. All right. And so because Tidal doesn't have a free tier, and Tidal doesn't have the user base that Spotify does, the only incentive that they can give artists to appear on Tidal is if they pay them more. Okay. So the idea of, like, the whole point of why your music is on Tidal and why my music is on Tidal and why anybody's music is on Tidal, okay, is because, yes, while Tidal doesn't have the user base, that Spotify does, at least they pay more per stream. Okay. So it's just part of Tidal's business model. But with Spotify, they're not going to just start paying artists more unless artists boycott Spotify. But that's not going to happen because everybody's on Spotify. Or if Spotify just gets rid of their free service, which isn't going to happen either because they don't have to.
So we can't fight it.
That's just what it is.
We can't really get anywhere.
Well, no. I just offered a solution.
Well, the label, okay? I agree with that.
Like, the reason why so many people are on Spotify, number one is because it's free. Number two is because every major label's on Spotify. All right. So if everybody got off of Spotify, if all the major labels got off Spotify, all right, then people wouldn't use it as much. All right. If Bruno Mars and Taylor Swift and all these other people were not on Spotify, then people wouldn't use it as much. And Spotify would either have to bend to the will of the labels to bring them back or, something. But the point is that right now, if the major labels didn't have the power that they had, then we would be able to say, hey, I'm not going to be, Craig Reeves is not going to be on Spotify unless you start paying artists more. Alvinos is not going to be on Spotify unless you pay us more. Bad Snacks or Rachel K. Collier or all these other people who are just as big as the major artists, we're not going to be on Spotify anymore unless you start paying artists more and we'd be able to actually move the needle.
Yeah.
Okay. But right now we don't have power because we're not on majors. The major labels have an equity stake in Spotify. You think they're going to do anything to hurt Spotify? They're all working hand in glove. That's the reason why I was saying that a lot of the problem is that the major labels just control everything as far as exposure and as far as all that goes. That's what I was talking about before. That's the only way the system's going to change. I've thought a lot about this, believe me.
But do you know that, I don't think even if Bruno Mars, like Taylor Swift pulled out all of her music, what was it, 2014? From Spotify because she wanted to protest or whatever. Nothing changed. And she's the biggest streaming artist of our. You know
why nothing changed?
She put them back in.
She put it back in. Number one, and
years
plus,
later,
Taylor Swift, as powerful as she is, as powerful as Taylor Swift is, she's one person.
But that's my point. Right? If Taylor Swift did it and nobody else joined, nothing.
Nobody else joined. Exactly.
That's my point.
Why? Because their labels didn't let them, and Taylor Swift came right back.
So I think it's pointless to argue about this now, and I don't see. I don't see a solution. Really.
Okay. I just offered a solution.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what I am saying is that that's the only way you're going to see a change, whether it's possible or not.
I guess I don't.
I mean, whether it's possible or not,
that's the word.
That's a different. I guess I don't see a possible
solution. You know what I mean? It's a very stretched solution. I don't see that really.
Boy, you're black pilled.
I'm sorry, bro. It's I'm trying to be realistic here. I don't know. I don't see it happening. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you why it's not going to happen. Okay, I agree that it's not going to happen. The reason it's not going to happen is because, unfortunately, people outside of the majors, people who are independent artists, don't want to work together.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, independent artists, they don't want to work together. They don't want to come together. They don't want to think about the greater cause, right? We're too busy competing against each other. We're too busy also trying to get signed to the major label.
I'm not.
All right. We're too busy trying to be a part of the problem. All right. We want to get on Universal. We want to get on Warner. We want to get on Sony. Okay. That's the problem. Yeah. That's the main problem. We don't want to work together. We don't trust each other. We, unfortunately, will trust Universal. We'll trust Sony. We'll trust Warner. Let me put it to you this way, all right? If you take some independent artist who has some clout, let's name some artist who kind of has some clout. there could be a bunch of people who are in their DMs and they will ignore every single one of them. You get one person from Universal, one person from Sony, one person from Warner. Hit them up. What do you think's gonna happen? Oh my God, I got signed to Universal. I'm telling you right now, that's why. Because everybody wants to be part of the major. Nobody wants to work with these nobody independent artists. We don't want to work together. We don't trust each other because we've all been brainwashed the same way that Spotify was brainwashed, that the major labels are to be trusted, that the major labels are king, and that if you want to be a somebody, join the major labels, only work with major producers, only work with major artists. That's what it is. That is the reason why it's not going to change. It's not because it can't happen. It's because we won't let it happen. That's what it is.
Craig.
And you know
Craig,
I'm right about this.
Yeah, I do agree with that. You should be a politician for... Damn, Jesus. That's a speech. That's a monologue. Damn. Dude, I agree, because obviously people want clout. Like, who's going to listen?
Clout.
Like, who's going to listen? Like, yeah, you're right. If I reach out to somebody and I have no clout and nobody knows who I am, they're not going to freaking respond. They're going to ghost me. But if I'm somebody, even if you don't have to be a major label, you just have to be an artist who has like 20,000 followers on Instagram. You know, you get responses.
Yeah. And that person with 20,000 followers on Instagram, more than likely, the reason why they got 20,000 followers on Instagram, and I hate to
come on, Craig, don't crush my dreams.
No. I'll say this. Hang on, wait a minute. No. I'm gonna say this. Okay, dreams. And there's a lot of people who have been on this show who have more than that. All right. But I'm speaking the truth, okay? Most people who have a big following on Instagram, the reason they have that following is because somebody with clout gave them exposure. All right? Either it was a major label, right? Or it was somebody else who had clout. A bigger artist gave them clout. All right? Listen, I love Neon Vines, okay? Neon Vines was on this show, okay? But Neon Vines would be the very first person to tell you that when she started putting out her stuff, in fact, she said this in the interview that I did with her. All right. She said, listen, I got to give credit to Rolly, who reached out to me after I put my video out of me doing my thing on YouTube. Rolly helped put me on. Okay. You know, I guarantee you that Dressage would tell you, being on Andrew Huang's show gave me a lot of exposure, right? Bad Snacks said the same thing. All right. Imajiro said, hey, ending up on the Lo-Fi Girl playlist helped put me on. They'll be the first people to tell you this. Now, the thing is imagine the clout that a major label could give you.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I have no arguments.
This game is all about clout, dude. It is all about clout. It's all about relationships. It really is. And look, that is nothing against people who are talented. That doesn't mean that the people, look, I don't bring people on here who are not talented. I've said that before. All right. Like if you are being interviewed by me, I think you're talented. But the truth is, this game is built on clout. There are people who are on this show, who have been on this show, who have, 50,000 people on Instagram, 60,000. And then there are people who barely even have 1,000. Do I think that the people who have, 20 to 30,000 followers on Instagram are 10 times as talented? No, they just have a bigger name because somebody with clout helped put them on. That's not an insult against them. That's reality. And they'll tell you that too. Yeah. In fact, they have said that because I've interviewed them. You can go back and listen.
I did finally enough find Bad Snacks through Andrew Huang. So yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't mean she wasn't
right, and this is nothing against Bad Snacks. Bad Snacks is incredibly
talented. It doesn't mean because
talented.
I discovered her on Wednesday when Andrew Huang dropped a video, she wasn't as good on Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. And there are people who are just as deserving, just as hardworking, just as talented is bad snacks. I'm talking to somebody right now who I think it is. And the thing is, though, at the same time, I just want that opportunity for more people.
That I agree
right?
with.
You shouldn't have to luck into being on Andrew Huang's show in order to get exposure.
Do you think you lack? You have to have I don't think it's lack to end up on an. I think it's a lot of preparation meets opportunity and a lot of hard work.
Okay, look, I'm not saying it's completely
there's a lack.
I'm using that. Yeah, I'm using that term colloquially.
I just have an issue with the word. It takes away so much credit from the work we put in.
Okay, but here's what I would say. All right, and I know that Jessie would agree with this. There's a lot of people who deserve the opportunity that she got. Okay, there's a lot of people who work just as hard as she did. Okay, there's a lot of people who were just as diligent, took their craft just as seriously as she did, just as talented as she is, were about their business as much as she, but they didn't get the opportunity. There are people out there who worked as hard as I did, who did everything they could, and they didn't get signed to a major like I did, and I got dropped after 6 months. But still,
is that true?
All right, there are a lot of people who are just as deserving as me. There are people out there who are just as deserving as you. There are people out there who are probably more talented than me, who are homeless. I'm not in any position to say, oh, well, if they would have just worked I did, or took their craft seriously the way I did, or pulled themselves up by their bootstraps the way I did. No, I mean...
Well, obviously, I think it plays a huge part where you're from and what your background and everything.
Or where you have the privilege of
exactly,
going.
That's my point. That's what I mean, where you're from. Yeah. Sorry. English. Yeah. I guess that's circumstance.
Yeah.
We can't change that, can we?
And also, so my whole deal is that I want to see a world where there's just more opportunity. I really feel like, yes, people can release music now, and it's great that there is an ability that people have to release something to the world. You don't have to go through a major label to even have worldwide distribution. That's great. Yeah. It is. So I don't want to take anything away from that. At the same time, though, what's happened is that there's still an advantage that the majors have. And because the industry's so flooded now, there is going to be this foothold the major labels have. They just found another way to spend their money, and that's basically to have way more exposure than pretty much everybody and every one of us, right? Nowadays it's you can release your music, but nobody's going to hear it because there's 20,000 new records released every day on Spotify. So, we have to do something about that. So, yeah.
Crazy. I don't have any more thoughts. I don't know. I think it's a product of our times. As you said, it's flooded. There's so much out there. Of course, the labels are gonna have to find a new way to stay strong. At the same time, I do think they always had the exposure advantage on their side. 2000s, why would you wanna? I mean, you said because you wanted to release music and there was no other way to record it, but also the exposure. They gave you that. They always gave you exposure. I think right now that's the only thing they have. Is what you said.
Absolutely.
But they always had that.
Well,
it's crazy.
I'll tell you what, Alvinos, this is a hell of a conversation.
Wow. I'm getting hot and it's freezing here, so it's weird.
Well, I really thank you for showing up and doing this with me. Guys, you definitely need to check out Alvinos' album. It is fantastic. It is called Crushed Soul and Antisocial Behavior. There is going to be a link to it in the YouTube description below if you are listening to this on YouTube. And for Alvinos, I'm Craig Reeves, and thank you all for listening. And we will be back next week with another episode.